Hello and welcome to the new series of Drishti IAS. I am Pooja Dwivedi, and in this segment today we are going to talk about the Indo-US relations. This topic is important from the perspective of prelims and extremely important from the perspective of GS Mains paper 2. So let's begin with the topics of discussion that we are going to look at step by step. First of all, we will talk about why in news. Then we will discuss a bit about the background of the ongoing events. We will talk about the US-Indo relationship. We will talk about it focusing more after the 2000s. Then we will talk about the challenges, the way forward in the midst of the segment. I am going to ask you few prelims-based questions. Kindly comment the correct answer in the comment segment. And in the last of the segment, I am going to give you a mains-based question for practice with the help of this particular segment. So let's begin with why in news. So as we all know that Joe Biden, who is going to be the 46th President of the United States of America, is said to be sworn in today. According to the Indian Standard Time, the ceremony will be able to be broadcasted at 8:30 p.m. And if we talk about the concerns related to the swearing-in ceremony, it's going to be unprecedented because it will be pared down as well as virtual distance. Then if we talk about the background of what is actually wrong, why is there a concern? Because of the Capitol Hill violence, which was incited by a speech given by Donald Trump at the Save America rally. So if we talk about the Capitol Hill violence, we have discussed about this and before as well. So Capitol Hill violence was the violence related by the Save America rally, which was conducted on the 5th and 6th of January. And in that particular ceremony, in that particular rally, Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani and many other members gave certain speeches by saying, "Take back our country" and "Fight like hell." This incited a violence and of course the riots at the Capitol Hill. Now, if we talk about what happened after that, Donald Trump became the first president of the United States to be impeached for the second time for the incitement of insurrection. So this was the entire chain of events. The insurrection, the incitement of insurrection had taken place because he wanted to show protest against the elections which held Joe Biden victorious. So if we talk about US-India relations, what turn are going to take it? What is the turn that the US and the Indian relations are going to take? If we talk about the expectations by India from the new president of the United States, there are many, such as restoring the $6 billion trade that was hindered because of the Trump administration, and also to lift the curb on visas, take very strong stance against Pakistan-based terrorist groups, and also deepen coordination when it comes to aggressive China. And of course, India does need US for a free and open Indo-Pacific region as much as the US needs India. India also wants a freer and more reformed nuclear United Nations Security Council. And also, if we talk about the nuclear suppliers group, India wants an entry in that also, and it looks up to the US. So Trump, before Biden, had made certain agreements, such as mini trade deal, which has yet not been finalized. That is also something India needs to talk about with the current or the sworn in today from the onwards, sworn in president of the United States. So India looks up to the new president for such deals and in such areas. So if we talk about Biden, he as a candidate made the right noises. If we talk about the green card issuance, on the website of Biden, it was there that instant green cards will be issued to those candidates who are looking for doctorate degrees in science, technology, engineering and mathematics. He also called the Chinese President Xi Jinping as a thug when he spoke at many ceremonies. And if we talk about the stance on terrorism, Biden government, Biden administration will be very tough on that as well. And Of course, if we talk about Biden, Biden is a well-known figure in India because he worked very hard as a senator. And if we talk about uplifting the sanctions in the year 2001, and as vice president also in the Barack Obama's administration, he was a positive figure for India. And of course, Kamala Harris, who is said to be the first Indian origin vice president of the United States of America, she is also being seen as a positive figure now. So if we talk about what has been the timeline of the US-Indo relations, we will begin with 2001. But let's take you back to 1991 for a while, when liberalization, privatization and globalization, the Indian economy was reformed in order to expand its trade with humongous economies such as the US. In the year 1998, because of the nuclear tests conducted, and it took the intelligence agencies of US, by surprise, it led to certain sanctions imposed on India by the US. So if we talk about after that, from 2001 onwards, the uplift of sanctions by the US George Bush administration, here Joe Biden worked very positively in order to make the new administration uplift these sanctions, the economic sanctions. As a senator, he was a senator back then. Then in 2005, if we talk about, energy security dialogue also began, because it was being seen that India is going to be a major partner when it comes to energy security. And this was amidst tension between India and America, because India was cooperating with Iran, and also if we talk about America was cooperating with Pakistan, and there were tensions with respect to the sale of the fighter jets from America to Pakistan. And India and the US also signed new defense framework in the year 2005. It led to much more cooperation in the military arena, disaster relief, humanitarian assistance, and many exercises, many landmark exercises when it came to maritime, that means naval, land and air exercises were conducted between the US and India. And landmark civil nuclear deal was drafted. Here, Joe Biden played a very significant role, and because of him playing a significant role as a senator, and then in 2008 as the vice president, this deal was possible, right? So nuclear energy regulator, it allowed Indian nuclear trade as well. Now India became the first country to be out of the nuclear supplier group to cooperate with America when it comes to nuclear trade. And Indian spacecraft made its first moon landing, that was Chandrayaan-1 in the year 2008 with the help of NASA, and it carried 2 NASA instruments which led to the discovery of molecules of water. Then terrorist attack at the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, which saw approximately 300 people killed in just 3 days, and of which 6 were Americans, and FBI coordinated in close proximity with Indian administration to exchange information about the terrorist attack. Also, now if we talk about the year 2010, US Treasury Secretary, it launched economic partnership in order to enhance and greatly engage with India when it comes to economic cooperation. And US and India held their first strategic dialogue in order to boost cooperation in the fields of military assistance. And military assistance, if I talk about majorly Indo-Pacific assistance. Then Obama administration, it backed India's bid for the first time for UN Security Council. UN Security Council is being seen as outdated and an arena for just few members of the world to play their part. So India has been working and striving very hard towards getting into the first nuclear supplier group arena, and second, a reform of the UN Security Council, of course, for that as well. Then comes 2014, when Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi was invited to the US, and there he gave a speech at the Madison Square. He engaged with US businessmen in order to attract investment. This was in 2014. And here only Export and Import Bank of India and Exim Bank, as well as, not India, Exim Bank and Indian Energy Agency, they signed a deal for $1 billion in order to exchange proper transfer of technology for low carbon emitting equipments. So this was from 2014. After that, if we talk about pivot to Asia, the Obama administration did say that India is going to be of a big role when it comes to settling America's or the US's interest in Asia. So, pivot to Asia India has always been the pivot to Asia for Democrats. Also, if we talk about 2017, this was the first time ever when Trump administration and Prime Minister Narendra Modi came face to face, and they had certain disagreements over H-1B visa, climate change, as well as trade. But these issues were sidelined when it came to summits, when they made joint statements. They, of course, converged on many parts, especially when it came to rising aggression of China. Then if we talk about in the year 2018, the 2+2 dialogue was held between the US Secretary of State, US Secretary of Defense, and Ministry of External Affairs and Ministry of Defense. That means their counterparts in India. And COMCASA agreement was signed. COMCASA means Communication and Compatibility Security Agreement. This particular agreement was signed because India and the US wanted to exchange encrypted communication as well as equipments in order to boost their military ties, right? Moving on, if we talk about the year 2019, now here there was a problem related to the trade. So here what happened? Trump just ended the general system of preferences under which products from a developing country since the year 1970s could make duty-free access to the American market. Now, Trump administration said that India is not doing equivalent, or it's not putting American products on the same pedestal as America is putting India on. So that is the reason that India lost $6 billion of trade with the US, which it wants to get back on track. Now here, after that, India also put certain retaliatory tariffs on approximately 28 American products. Moving on, if we talk about the year 2020, BECA, these four are the basic four pillars: COMCASA, BECA, LEMUA. There is one more very important pillar of military cooperation. You have to tell me in the comment segment. So, Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement. This was signed in the year 2020 between the US and India in order to exchange very sensitive geospatial data between US and Indian armies. That means Indian militaries. That means exact location of drones and military vehicles, military naval vehicles would be available to each other country in order to keep the Indo-Pacific area very open and aggression free. So as we know that China has been the driving force since the year 2017 between India and the US relationship, and same will be expected by the Biden administration as well. Now, if we talk about the convergences, there are certain divergences, but we will go through the convergence first, then we will talk about the divergences. So you can note it down or take a screenshot. A foundational military agreement that allows for the sharing of encrypted communication and equipment, COMCASA, this was signed, and a change in US export control laws that places India in a privileged category of NATO and non-NATO US allies, right? The signing of an industrial security annex that will allow for greater collaboration among the two countries' private defense industries. So you have to, whenever you are going to write an answer for the mains exam, you have to be very careful with India-US relationship when it comes to, first, defense is there, strategic military ties, defense, first is that. Second is economic cooperation. These two are the main pillars of the Indian and US relationship, defense and economy. And of course, the diaspora soft power is always there. So, defense has been the most significant pillar. So, Indian and American private industries through Industrial Security Annex could cooperate amongst each other and interchange knowledge and innovation as well as equipments to boost these military and strategic defense ties further. Also, if we talk about the 2+2 foreign and defense ministry dialogues, they have been of great help, and the bilateral strategic energy partnership was launched in April 2018, under which India has started importing crude and LNG from the US. Now the US is India's 6th largest source of crude oil imports as well as hydrocarbons. An inauguration of the first India-US tri-services military exercise and expansion of existing military exercise as well, right? So if we talk about India and US, the another most important pillar is there, that is counter-terrorism. India and US have been the victims of terrorism. So because of that, India and US are working a great deal when it comes to counter-terrorist operations. So if we talk about how is US showing its efforts when it comes to counter-terrorism or being in solidarity with India, it was after the Pulwama attack when the Lashkar-e-Toiba chief Masood Azhar was designated as a terrorist by the US under a UN resolution. So there are certain efforts that have been made by the US when it came to 2008 attack in Mumbai and Pulwama attack, and also the Kargil attack when US intervened after a point of time when it from a very small scale war started to engulf most of the parts of the northwestern region. So because of US's efforts and support, US will always be of permanent interest to India. Also, if we talk about inclusion of India and South Asia in the US Maritime Security Initiative, US needs India when it comes to maintain a stable Indo-Pacific region and a stable Asian region. So India is very important, and especially with the rise of an expansionist rise of China. And also, the US has designated India as an integral part, of course, Indo-Pacific narrative by the conception of Quad. So, Quad is a grouping of 4 countries, Japan, Australia, US and India. So, these are the countries which are extremely interested. They have huge stakes in the Indo-Pacific region because of trade, that means economics, and also regional securities. So, Indo-Pacific region needs to be freed, and of course China is the driving force behind Quad as well. If we talk about the divergences, that means the challenges. Trade deal is the biggest challenge. So if we talk about the trade deal, basically US has under the Trump administration named India as tariff king because India does not provide duty-free access, and it imposes a lot of duties on exports by the US, exports from the US. So that is why American goods become less attractive when it comes to other goods. That means domestic products. And US, because of that, moved to World Trade Organization against India. Now, US trade representatives also say that because India is not permitting or it's restricting the data of its own citizens to be imported to the US, that is a hindrance in the digital economy, digital trade. Then, of course, if we talk about the trade from the perspective of US, what does it find really attractive? The agricultural and the dairy industry is very attractive to US. So US wants proper access to agriculture industry and also dairy industry of India. But these two industries need to be protected from the Indian perspective, and these two industries have been the biggest reason that India did not sign the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership deal. And if we talk about US-Pakistan equation, US has softened its position on Pakistan in the last 7 months due to the role of Pakistan it can play in the Afghan deal, and it was likely to be signed on February 29, 2020. There are internal issues in India. India and US strong strategic partnership is based on the idea of shared values of democracy, rule of law, religious freedom and protection of minorities. However, the revocation of Article 370, the new citizenship law and the NRC is testing this shared values principle. Now, what happened? US-Pakistan equation has been a little off track where India actually wants it to be under the Trump administration, because the Trump administration wanted to hasten its disengagement in Afghanistan. The Trump administration said that they are engaged in such a war which is never going to end, in such a deadly war. So because of that, India and Pakistan and USA's equation changed completely. It has softened, the US has softened its equation with Pakistan because it knows that Pakistan can play a big role in the Afghan deal. First is that. Secondly, internal issues in India. So because of the revocation of the Article 370, because of the introduction of Citizenship Amendment Act and National Register of Citizens, these different and very internal issues of India, these were highlighted by the US civil societies and the Congress as well. And because of that, there was a lot of pressure on the Trump administration to condemn India. So there are certain blockages also that needs to be taken care of with the new president. All right. So if we talk about the way forward, we are going to look at first from the nuclear perspective. It says that despite the historic nuclear deal 2008, civilian nuclear cooperation has not taken off. But the agreement with Westinghouse to build 6 nuclear reactors will finally bring US nuclear energy on Indian soil. So basically, what has happened? Because of the signing of the nuclear deal, India had bifurcated its nuclear arena into 2 groups. First was civil, second was military. So for civil purposes, nuclear deal was signed between India and the US, and it hasn't taken off very significantly as of yet. So because of the coming in of the new president of the United States, it can be seen as a way forward that Westinghouse has already signed an agreement to build 6 nuclear reactors. India needs economic boost. India needs to be there in the policies of the US in order to be actually known and seen as the pivot to Asia. That is why it needs proper nuclear support. and nuclear suppliers group would be a big role for India, would play a big role for India if it gets its access into. It also says that in order to counter China in the maritime domain, India needs to fully engage with the US and other partners in the Indo-Pacific region in order to preserve the freedom of navigation and, of course, the rules-based order. Also, in international politics, we know that there are no permanent friends and no permanent enemies, only permanent interests. In such a scenario, India must continue to pursue its foreign policy of strategic hedging. That means that India should not completely depend on the US, because there are no permanent friends or permanent enemies when it comes to international politics and international relations, but always permanent interest. So as long as India and the US have permanent interest in a particular region, in a particular moral order, in a particular shared values of democracy, until then only we can say that US and India are friends, right? But India should also not lose its friends such as Russia, and also try to be on its own when it comes to dealing with China. Okay, so if we want to look at a question related to this particular segment, kindly pay attention and practice this. In the 21st century, India-US relations have found many reasons for strategic convergence. However, there is also a pressing need to weed out the divergences. You have to analyze it. So, I hope you found this segment informative. That's it for today. Tomorrow we shall meet again with another segment. Until then, stay updated and thank you so much for watching.